Funny that it's Essendon player testing positive or something, isn't it?
Pull your finger out of your ass.
Jeez.
This is my first ever football jumper. My three votes, I should say. My three goats. My three votes for Charlie. Oh, top of the world, mate.
What a time to be alive.
I look a bit like Nickel Bellic from GTA 4, I feel, with this.
That could get dangerous.
All right, Pressure Point fans, we have a very, very, very special guest on this afternoon's podcast. We have AFL royalty. We've got 291 game player with St Kilda, Hawthorn and Sydney. Kicked 383 goals. He's a three-time All-Australian and our Gold Coast local and breakfast radio host. His name is Peter Spida Everitt. Spida, welcome.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the Gold Coast, we're still up and running. We're still alive here. We haven't left anywhere. So, no, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure to have you on, mate, like we said. And we touched a little bit about it off air, but for those that are living in Melbourne and unsure what life is like outside the four walls of the Victorian state, what's life been like for you throughout the pandemic?
Oh, look, we all bag our premiers, but, we've been pretty lucky. We've been, Southeast Queensland and the whole of Queensland. We had the AFL Grand Final last year. We had the NRL Grand Final this year. I went to a function on the weekend at the casino with 1,000 people there. Mind you, a lot of people were, still not used to going out into big crowds or even to functions where you get dressed up. So I knew a few of the guys where their suits didn't really fit them anymore. They had to get new shirts, and a few girls, the dresses no longer fit. So if you are in Victoria, and I know you're about to come into lockdown or whatever happens over the next couple of months, just go and check your suits and your dresses in case you've been invited to a wedding or a gathering and you might need it at a Christmas party, whatever it is, because we've been very, very lucky. It's been interesting because we're right on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. But, look, Queenslander, we cannot complain.
Yeah, no, we're very jealous of you down here in Victoria for sure. And look, we come prepared into these podcasts. So I've done my research. I know the answer to the next question already, but for those at home, I'll be doing an injustice by not asking, where'd the nickname Spider come from? I know it used to be Stalker, which let's just say is probably a good thing that's not still the name going around. It would have been misinterpreted severely, but why Spider?
Oh, look, it's really, to be honest, I think it was because I had dreadlocks and you're tall and lanky, and people just started calling me Spider, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and now actually people don't even know my real name. They only ever say Spider. Like even all my work emails are Spider, not Peter, because they didn't know my real name was Peter. So, yeah, that's all it was. The dreadlocks, which was like Danny Longlegs and Huntsman's Legs, and then it just grew. And then when we were playing, of course, we had Spider Burton also in Fremantle. So, I got invited to a few functions and they were expecting Spider Burton, and Spider Burton got to a few functions and they were expecting me. So, yeah, we've had a couple of the Spiders there. So, interesting.
You touched on the hairstyle and the dreadlocks, and from someone that's a little bit follically challenged, such as myself, it's interesting to see some of these hairstyles go around. Was that a bit of the sign of the times, or were you a bit of an innovator back then with the crazy hairstyles?
Look, you would have had a fair doing your day. I reckon the mullet would have come out back in.
Once upon a time, mate.
Once upon a time. Yeah, look, it was interesting. I started with the drees. I actually when I first got picked to go and play for the St Kilda under-19s, I had my hair in braids and beads. So it was, and I got told to take the beads out because of tackling and that around football. So I've always had those kind of hairstyles. I remember my daughter's first day of school, I had green hair, but I don't know. I think you do it, put a little bit of pressure on yourself. But I just enjoyed, I suppose, mixing it up a little bit, having a bit of fun with the hair, and you look back now and you think, yep, you're a total tool, but hey, that's what we do at that time. We think we're cool when we're not really.
I love it. All right, well, let's start talking some footy, and we'll wind it back right to your early days, and back to 1993 when you got picked up by the Saints, and it was the zoning system back then too. So you were a Mornington Peninsula boy, so you were zoned to the Saints, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I was played at Crib Point, and then I went into Hastings, and Gary Collingcat, who, he was a coach of the under-19s. I played against the Suns, so they ended up picking me up, played under-19s and the reserves. And, yeah, it was because we were zoned, even though the draft had come in, we were still zoned. So that's where we went. So, St Kilda had the Mornington Peninsula, and when you got Stuart Lowe, Robert Harvey, Nathan Burke, all these guys coming out of the Mornington Peninsula, and we also had that area of Ballarat where Tony Lockett and Danny Frawley and these kind of guys come from. So yeah, it was the zoning system at that stage, and then it went into the draft. So kind of that last era of zoning.
Yeah, for sure. And what about your debut in '93? How well do you remember that now? I know a lot of players remember their first game, first goal. What was the experience like for you?
Oh, well, when you first kicks the goal, you always remember that, not to brag, but, there's a limited amount of blokes that were able to do it. But, no, I always remember, heading down to Geelong for my first game. And, my dad and my grandfather at the stage were coming along for the ride and going to have a look, watch the game. And, halfway up towards Geelong, up the Princess Highway or the highway there, my grandfather's gone, do you want a nip of scotch? Do you want, just to calm the nerves? And I'm like, no, we don't do that. Not at AFL level. So, and just running out. And I think, we had quite a few big names at the St Kilda Footy Club, which, obviously you idolised with, your Tony Lockett's and all that at full forward, and, your Robert Harveys and your Laser Vidovic, these guys, Nicky Winmar, and then, on the other side of the, other side wearing the Geelong, colours, you've got, Billy Brownless and, Gary Ablett and Barry Stoneham and Buddha Hocking. So it was kind of that, I think for any young bloke going in for their first game, it's that unreal, it's unreal, but it's that, is this real? Is this true? Playing AFL at its highest level. So, yeah, you always remember your first game.
Yeah, especially that era as well. The '90s is regarded as one of the best eras of AFL history. So with the players that you just reeled off there, Tony Lockett in particular, like what was it like, rocking up to St Kilda and you got, arguably the greatest full forward of all time there?
Well, I remember I never really went to the footy a lot. When I was growing up, my whole family were mad Collingwood supporters, and Mum and Dad thought it was too dangerous for me to go to a Victoria Park with my cousins. And, I still remember sitting in the Moorabbin change rooms after playing a seconds game, and then the seniors played afterwards, and you just hear this massive roar, and they go, yeah, Plugger's got the footy. And, you just, every time he got the footy, there was this huge roar at Moorabbin. And that used to be the days of, they used to go from one end to another to follow the full forward. So it was just, it was just one of those blokes that always had that aura about him. Just, his training styles were a bit more lenient than what we were asked to do. But he also trained away from the footy club a fair bit. He loved his footy, but he didn't really, love that, everyone in 24/7. He went and did his weights somewhere else and got himself right each day. But, when you ran out with, Tony Lockett at one end, you're always a lot more confident, that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. All right, let's fast forward a couple of years and to 1996. You won the pre-season premiership with the Saints, and back then the pre-season was a little bit more serious. Players actually wanted to win it and wanted to compete in it compared to now. And how was that experience winning it in '96? And did you think you guys were probably destined for bigger things that year?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I think, Stan Ellis did a really, really good job with the team. And, you're right. That the preseason comp those days was a big thing. You presented a trophy and everyone got around you. And I remember actually breaking my jaw in that game. Earl Sporting had punched me, broken my jaw, and I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to go out and celebrate. So I had to drink bourbon through a straw all night, but that's what you did in the '90s. And I celebrated. And the next day on Sunday, I told the coaching staff, and they reckon that it happened at a nightclub that night. So I had to go and actually show them on tape the video. I said, "No, have a look. This is what happened here." So I missed a couple of weeks with a broken jaw, but all the memories and my mum used to keep everything in a scrapbook. So I've still got the scrapbook of the photos with all us, sitting there. And, the Saints have had, as we know, have been long awaited to win any form of, silverware that goes in the cabinet anywhere. But, those days where you have, people come in and say, you got to think and believe, and this is what you need. So, 96 had its premiership, the preseason premiership cup in the trophy cabinet as you walked into the Security Footy Club, and they had a spare little room ready for the 96 one, but that never happened.
Yeah, well, the next year in 97, you guys got close. Your 97 season personally as well was great. You're all Australian, but you missed the grand final though. You finished on top of the ladder, and then you missed the grand final. Like, how was that? With the mixed emotions with that sort of experience.
Yeah, really hard. At the time, it's funny because kind of at the time, you try and think you're going to get up, and I suppose these days they would have probably broke my collarbone. So those broke the collarbone. Darryl White hip and shouldered me when we were playing the Lions or the Bears, and they cost me probably 6 to 8 weeks. Grand finals 4 weeks later, so they would have probably pinned it and screwed it. You would have been targeted, but there's a couple of things to it. One that I would have really loved to go up against Sean Wren, two similar kind of players, two players in the same kind of form. On the biggest day in September or the biggest day in football, I would have loved to really have that challenge against Sean Wren, which unfortunately we didn't get up and do. But at the same time, I was only 24 at the time, and you're thinking, oh well, this is going to go on forever. That's all right. We've got a good enough team. With pre-season in 96, main one in 97, we'll be back here in 98. And gee, it's just, you don't know, you don't realise when you're that young how hard it is to, get into the top 4 and then obviously in the top 2 and make a grand final. And, the Saints are still trying. So every year it gets that little bit harder, and you just hope that, they can get to that last day in September and win it for all those diehard Saints fans out there. And, we've seen it over the last few years, to see Melbourne win this weekend, this year, and the Bulldogs winning a few years ago, just what it means. You don't realise what it means to supporters and how much passion and that they love when you are playing, when, you just, that's what you do. You go out there on the weekends and perform, but when the heartache's there, and then we're unable to control that anymore, and you realise and you talk to people exactly what it feels. It gets harder and harder, but you just hope one day they get it.
I think with putting it into perspective, I think almost the longer you wait, the sweeter it will taste when it finally does come to success. Not to say you wouldn't have preferred to have it earlier, but I think when it finally does come, it will be really special. Earlier on, you mentioned some of the great names that you've played with and alongside, and arguably none better than Robert Harvey, who did win back-to-back Brownlows. Be honest with us. Would he have won either of those Brownlows if he didn't have you hitting it down his throat every week?
Look, Rovers are only as good as their ruckman. There's no doubt. Look at Maxi Gawn on the year we've had. So, look, I was fortunate enough to win halves 2 Brownlows. I could have hit it to Nathan Burke quite easily, and unfortunately, Burkey could have 2 as well. So, now look, I think, look when you see these guys behind, and look, I've had a blessed career of being having some gun midfielders around us to be able to play alongside. And, when you look at Robert Harvey's work rate and even Nathan Burke and these blokes, and, you say, we used to use the time on the clock. We're hitting at 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock long, 6 o'clock. We had certain calls for the Robert Harvey ball or Redips, which is spider backwards. And we had all these calls. And as a ruckman, when you flush it down, one of your midfielders' throats, and they then, peel out the back and they're free, and they hit like a Stuart Lowe who comes out and marks the footy, who turns around and then kicks it long to a Jason Heatley, or, you see Maxi Gawn straight down Petrarca's throw, who then takes a bounce and kicks a goal. You kind of, that's the thrill in what you get. And, these guys, the midfielders, the amount they work, and, the work rate, and Robert Harvey in the 90s worked harder than no other away from football, just getting himself right and getting his bodies right. And, he was definitely, the bloke that everybody looked up to in the way of work rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Robert Harvey was a beacon of how to work hard during that period. And I think a lot of players idolised him with his work rate. And, he was an absolute gem to watch.
And unbelievable. I think I think he played 21 odd years and never changed his hairstyle once. It was like that Lego figurine, just never ever moved. It was just the best mop of hair you've ever seen. That didn't matter how far he ran or what he did, it just stayed strong.
I can just picture him going home, lifting the hair up, putting it on the bedside table, up the next day.
That's exactly what he does. I reckon he's got 3 or 4 different lots, and he just like a Bert Newton. Straight on.
Love it. All right, well, let's fast forward a couple more years and to 2001, where you joined an illustrious club in winning the Trevor Barker medal at the Saints. Do you reckon 2001 was one of your best years, if not your best, along with 97 as well?
Yeah, I think still 97. That kind of era was probably one of my better years. And then, I think like any player, the older you get, the more consistent you get, and you're able to, those kind of years. You got to think of the mid 90s, and you see these guys kicking a goal and coming off. I think it was either one of those years. I can't remember exactly which one, but I played every minute of every game. So, stayed on the ground for the whole entire season. So, for the longevity of being able to play and consistently as well. And, I think, and I'd still like to see it these days, is a lot more ruckmen go forward and, make a difference in the forward pocket. We're able to do that in the 90s. And, there's a lot of us that did it. You can go through a whole list of the ruckmen we used to compete against, and that was a part of the sport. You played, 60, 70% in the ruck and then 30 up forward. So, yeah, look, 91 was kind of that. 2001, it was just learning more about yourself and knowing what you need to do. And plus, we got drilled a lot earlier in our career that we're lazy, we're inconsistent, we're unprofessional. So there's a few things personally that I wanted to change, and I was able to change over a period of time. And, it definitely helped my footy.
You touched on ruckman being able to go forward and kick goals, and that's becoming a lot more prominent in the AFL today. And you see guys like Max Gawn, last game of the season, kicks the winning goal. And how important was that back then? And do you think it's obviously, I know it's a good thing that it's coming back now, but how important do you think it is that ruckmen are able to go forward and kick goals? Because you did quite a good job of it.
Yeah, well, right at the start, you rewind right back to the early 90s. There's, kind of like myself and Corey McKernan, Jeff Watt was a couple of years later, but, you had big Alex Ashenko and these kind of fellas who, Laser Vidovic, who, would pretty much take a ruck tap, try and belt the shit out of you really, and then go for a kick behind the ball. So when we started running forward and then taking marks and kicking goals, then they had to start putting people on us that actually could run and protect and, play that defender. Because, if we got the ball and we started running, they had to catch us. So I think it's really important. And, even talking about the grand final, I think the key to the grand final was the fact of, Maxi Gawn, trying to hold Maxi Gawn down. What do you want to try and do on him? You want to try and kick a goal on him so it makes him defend, so he's not so attacking. So I think it is a vital role for ruckman to be able to do both. Be a ruckman, no doubt, be able to defend so your ruckmen don't kick goals, but more importantly, you get down and snag one at crucial times just to keep them honest. And, it then becomes a really good game of Russian roulette. And, by the end of the 90s, most ruckmen could kick goals. You're in a marking contest and, against West Coast Eagles, and 2 seconds later, you turn around and you see Dean Cox 60 metres away running forward, and you think, shit, I'm in trouble here. So it really makes you start taking the ruckman into a whole different category.
Oh, absolutely. The ruckman's game is forever evolving, I guess, like every other position. And that gets nailed down at training, which St Kilda were infamous for some interesting training drills, I guess you could say. And none none more famous than the Nepean Highway haka, just outside Moorabbin. Talk us through it, because I know a little bit about the situation, but for a lot of people might not be aware, you were down Nepean Highway in Moorabbin there doing the haka on the main road. What was going on?
Elsie loves it. Stan Els loved it. I don't know what Elsie was thinking, but look, he was a fantastic coach and he was probably ahead of his time. But we used to go to Denny Park, which is around about a K&a-half from Moorabbin, and we'll do our training down there. And we had to cross the Nepean Highway in Melbourne. So one of the busiest strips right there on the corner of South Road and Nepean Highway. And I don't know what else he got thinking. Imagine trying to do that these days. He got all the players in the medium strip right in the middle. So you got cars going one way, cars going the other, and he would stand, he would point left and he'd point right, and you had to kind of, do your quick feet, move left. And when he went down, you had to go down and get back up. And if he says jump, you go and jump. But it was just a kind of a good little team bonding thing. Did the boys take the piss out of it? Yes, we did, but we all did enjoy it. It's maybe not in the middle of the Nepean Highway. At training, it was okay for a little bit of fun. And Elsie used to, and he'd wrap it up and send us off and let us go into the change rooms, and the boys would be all screaming and cheering and yelling and clapping. So it was a good little bonding thing. Yeah, it was weird, but I tell you, it wasn't the weirdest thing I've heard from coaches do. So I think for Elsie, it was fun for him, weird for us, but still we enjoyed it.
I was driving home tonight, past Dendy Park there on South Road. Yeah. I saw it and I was just thinking to myself, I don't know how on earth they did this, because you couldn't do it now. You couldn't do it now.
No way, not in the middle of the Nepean Highway, even running down there. Like, we'd just jog down there with our boots and then do our 4K time trials or whatever and run back. And, it was just, different times, but at the same time, it was fun. It was funny.
That is brilliant. Love it. Well, you left all the interesting training sessions and activities behind, and you moved on from the Saints and you went to the Hawks in 2003. How was that experience? I mean, was it tough leaving the Saints? Obviously starting your career there and being there for so long and then moving to a new club.
Yeah, it was. I've always, everybody would love to be a one club player. There's no doubt, and I'm still associated with the Saints today. And it's amazing. A lot of the volunteers are still there, but my career was at a tough spot where the perception out there wasn't great of myself, and found myself on the front page of the paper probably too many times rather than the back pages. So my mum always said, I know when you're in trouble when I see you on the front page of the paper. And it was far too often. And I did want a change of scenery and try and change that perception out there, because I didn't believe it was right. So for me, we had a chat with Collingwood. And then St Kilda did the deal with Hawthorn. The deal was, those days you didn't have a choice. The trade period went for 2 days. You had 48 hours to find a trade. Your manager did it all. It had to be done by, I think it was 2:00. And I still remember I was at a function down at the Formula One track at Albert Park in Melbourne. And the phone rang at 5 minutes to 2, and he said, congratulations, you're going to Hawthorn. So went down to Hawthorn with, Swabby and Croft and, all those, Jade Rawlings and those kind of fellas. And I really looked forward to it, and just wanted to, put my best foot forward, try and, get that perception of, train hard, play hard. And I think I was able to do that and change that around at Hawthorn, being a family club, and me having how many daughters I had, one by then or maybe two, but a couple of kids. It was just a good fit for me at the time.
You touched on the trade period being only 2 days. We've obviously just come out of this year's trade period, which was about 2 weeks. How long do you think trade period should run for? Being traded yourself, you know what it's all about. Do you think 2 weeks is too long?
Way too long. I think, look, let's be honest. Clubs talk. They know what they want. They know what they need to do. Let's put the players out there. Let's start it on a Monday morning, wrap it up on Friday. I think 2 days is too short. You've got to really kind of nut things out. But still, it fascinates me that a club wants to get rid of you, but they put a high price on you and the but hang on, they want to get rid of you, but they think you're worth an absolute truckload, and the club that want you don't want to pay anything for you. And it's like, well, hang on, I just don't. These two worlds shouldn't happen. But I reckon a 5-day trade period would be good for everyone. Get in, get out, and you got to think of. A lot of people forget this is your livelihood. If I don't get traded, I don't get picked up. This is my shop. My arms and my legs that's my business. And you're playing with people's careers and lives in over 2 weeks, and it's a really nervous, hard time for a lot of players going through it. If they're not going to get picked up, do they nominate for the draft? So I think it could be a lot better ran and a lot quicker.
Yeah, for sure. And geez, a two-day trade period, geez, that would be absolute chaos. I think the media would go nuts. Yeah,
it was epic, but it was good. And it had to be done. And you're thinking at the times, you can't just email. This was the faxes. The faxes had to get through to AFL House by 2:00, all signed. So, if the fax was playing up, you're running 3 doors down to another fax machine to make sure it gets through to AFL House. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, your early part of your career at Hawthorn was good. I mean, you won the Peter Crimmins medal in 2004 and a pretty lean time as well for the Hawks. I mean, you look at the success that they've had over the last 10 to 15 years, and it's hard to believe that they had such a lean period. But during that period, it was pretty tough for them, and you managed to win a Peter Crimmins medal, which is another huge achievement. So how was that period through that 03, 04, 05 period at the Hawks?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a different setup for myself as well. Their training programs was completely different to what it was at St Kilda. And as you say, it was a really lean period, but a period I enjoyed because there's a few things I learned about football clubs that I didn't see at St Kilda. And one was, just the success that Hawthorn had, that so many of the ex-players would come down. Dermy would be at training. You go to Adelaide and Johnny Platt would be in the change rooms. And, there was just always former players coming in, Dermot Burton being involved in the football club. And, as a player, I really enjoyed that. You really got a feel of what the footy club was about. And, the family club it was labelled as, you really felt at home. And unfortunately, Swabby was a great coach as well, but then he wasn't given the opportunity to, rebuild. And, we're able to see what they're able to do off a rebuild. But, they might have had some lean times, but those lean times do help you with draft picks and being able to get some number 1 picks into the fold. And, that's what they're able to do. And realistically, if you look at who, their picks over that period of time, if they didn't have those picks, they wouldn't have won the 4 premierships and the triple peat. So that sometimes you sit there and go, okay, it was a lean time, and unfortunately we were a part of it. I just say, we helped set them up, and then we let them, have their glory. But there's one thing of being able to draft, but then you'd be able to draft and keep the players and then maintain them, and that's what they're able to do. So they did an unbelievable job to be able to keep them. Every club's tried to do exactly the same, but they've been able to do it.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn have done it better than arguably any other club. And like you said, like the triple peat, and then they obviously won that other one in 2008. There was one more trade that went down in your career. You moved up to Sydney, and change of scenery for you. What was that like, being traded to the Swans, and obviously, leaving Melbourne and going to a completely new state? And how has that all gone down for you?
Yeah, look, there's two sides to this one. It was probably the toughest year in football in 06. I tried to get to Sydney at the end of 05 because I knew Jason Ball was retiring. Sydney won the flag, and I know that Sydney go for, if they rate their ruckman. So it was like, okay, I can take over from Jason Ball pretty quickly and easily here. And I was willing to go. Hawthorn didn't do the trade, so I was left playing Hawthorn, in 06, and didn't go down that well, which is fair enough. I understand when players in AFL put up their hand and they want to go. It's not like the NRL and other sports where you can play with a team, and at the end of that year, everyone knows you're going. And I respect that about AFL. So no longer in the leadership group, and a few of the boys questioned me, and I thought the first half of the year was all right, played okay, then got injured and had an ankle operation, and then just was told to go and do as I please because, they're going to trade me at the end of the year and head up to Sydney. So, look, I was pumped to go to Sydney. I was excited. I didn't know, what was going to unfold at Hawthorn. Nobody did. Alistair Clarkson had come in with a whole new formula, and we know, looking back now, that formula definitely worked. Could I have been there in 08? Maybe, but it wasn't to be. I was in Sydney in 07 and 08, but going to the Harbour City and seeing a club outside of Melbourne was fantastic. I recommend it for anybody who's AFL fans to go and actually have a look and maybe walk through the Sydney Swans and see how they operate and see how different it is. I still remember rocking up to a pre-season and, there would have been 1,000 kids out the front of the SCG ready to go into the cricket. And myself and Barry Hall had to walk in and do a weight session. We walked in and not one kid said hello to either of us. More important, Barry Hall, who's the premiership captain of that football club, no kid knew any of them. And it was just like, mate, if that was in Melbourne, you wouldn't have got anywhere near the door, at that stage. So it was really fascinating to see the difference. But at the same time, to see a football club ran so well and to see, you haven't got a whole list of superstars, but their commitment to training, their commitment to each other, this Bloods culture and how that evolves and just the way they go about their footy, day-to-day life and the structure of everything. I've taken that into things I've done after football, is the way the Sydney Swans structure their whole football club is remarkable, and that's why they have so much consistent success.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that Bloods culture thing is something that gets spoken about a lot, doesn't it? And I mean, hearing it firsthand what it's actually like, it just explains why they've been so good for so long. And I mean, you touch on that, the difference between living in Melbourne and Sydney and being an AFL player in two different cities. Like, did you enjoy being out of the spotlight, or did you prefer having people recognise you on the streets, or did you like just casually being able to walk the streets and no one noticing you?
Oh, let's be honest, we all love being noticed. We all love being noticed every now and then, but you get that on weekends when you go and play interstate. But it's tough. It was 50-50. I had a few issues there throughout my career where you wish no one knew, and because your children, my daughter used to get hassled and that at school a fair bit and stuff as well. So there's all the pros and the cons, and to sit there. I like just being able to see what it's like outside of Victoria, because when you are in Victoria, you're in the heartland of AFL, and you think that's all that matters. And, as soon as you fly into Victoria, the first question everyone asks, who do you barrack for? And that's what, we do love that. We love that about football. Love, the tradition of all your Anzac days and, your grand finals. I absolutely love the passion of Melbourne, but it's nice to be able to step back and just have a look at it and just go along your own business, get yourself ready, go down, play your game, get out, and, as you say, go down and do a beach recovery and, have a few beers on a Sunday arvo and no one cares. So there's absolutely two sides to it. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. All right, let's move on to your post-career and breakfast radio on the Gold Coast, and you've got an amazing travel show as well, the Great Australian Doorstep. That's all seems to be going really well. And how is life up there and on radio?
Yeah, look, I was really lucky. I played footy for 16 years and travelled around Australia for a couple of years and did our travel show, which is just really promoting travelling around Australia. Really, just caravan and camping and some of the remarkable and amazing places. And, we've been able to go into some fascinating and if you haven't been into some of these places around Australia, if you've never done the middle trip up the Stuart Highway of Cooper Pedy and Uluru and Mataranka and, Kakadu and all that, you've got to get out there and see it, and we're all guilty of going overseas, but I absolutely love it. Some of the communities and people up around, the Northern Territory and the Kimberley area I just love the red dust. For me, absolutely love the red dust. And, Bricky Radio, I was fortunate enough to start, 11 years ago now on Bricky Radio here on the Gold Coast. And again, very similar to footy. So many of the same things apply. Your coach or your boss will come in after the show and say, you did this right and you did this wrong and change this. And maybe tomorrow I'll look at that. And, you do a lot of prep work, like, training for footy. So there's a lot of things that are very similar. And, I love it. Like Bricky Radio, always something different happening each and every week. You could be doing a challenge to raise money for a local charity, or it could be being thrown out of an aeroplane for a stunt, or you could be just doing so many different things. And I've spoken about it a little bit, and we're in a fortunate position, especially over the last 18 months, where we're right on the border, Queensland and New South Wales, and we understand where with COVID and whatever's happened over the last 18 months, we've got plastic barriers, stopping our listeners getting to see each other. So we've been on this each and every day, where one side of the barrier, you've got a party of 100, and 5 metres away, you're not even allowed to have a party of 2. So it's been a really interesting eye-opener for myself, but absolutely love the radio side of things.
Yeah, it sounds like an absolute whirlwind. And you touched on some of the places in Australia that we should all go visit, which comes to my next question. With lockdown coming to an end in most states, hopefully the next month or so, where do you recommend that some of us travel now that we're finally allowed to again and see our beautiful country?
Look, I'll give you Lady Elliot, which is a little island off Queensland here. Unbelievable. If you're into snorkeling, if you're into manta rays, if you're into reefs, part of the Great Barrier Reef, you look at that. This is probably the best snorkeling you'll see around the world, and I'm not kidding about that. It is unbelievable. And take the kids. You can walk. It's no driving. There's no, like, the island's only tiny. Only fits about 90 people as it is, but you can go out there and they educate you at the same time. So for me, Lady Elliot. And the other one, you've got to get out to the bush. You've got to get out to the camel races of Uluru or Bullia, or maybe even the Birdsville races. But you've got to get out. The Big Red out there, the big concert they put in, just out of Birdsville. That, for me, as soon as you're driving and you hit that red dust, there's nothing like it. And you hit the back roads, and then suddenly 2 hours of corrugation, you come up to a pub, and there's, 6 or half a dozen people in there, and they're your best mates in an hour, and you're having a beer and you're chatting to them, and just the people you meet and the stories out in Australian outback is just, for me, fascinating, and I absolutely love it. So head towards, Birdsville and the Red Dust, or if you like the marine life, head out to Lady Elliot.
Mate, you couldn't have sold that any better. I mean, that's been on my bucket list for a long time. So I'll be heading down there as soon as we can. It sounds amazing. So
yeah, it is. It is, and it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you get out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, mate. Well, just before we wrap up, we've got a segment called the Pressure Cooker, where we'll ask just a few quick fire questions, and then we'll finish up from there. So Quinn will play the sting, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, easy.
Alrighty, I'll kick us off. Who's the best player you've played with?
Oh, Robert Harvey. I think Robert Harvey would be the best by far.
And which is the favourite game you think you've ever played in?
I reckon Victoria versus South Australia, MCG. It was absolutely pissing down with rain, but I kicked a goal from 50, and I thought running out amongst some of the greats and beating South Australia, even though they're pride of South Australia, we were able to knock them off. So, yeah, the Victoria game, I used to love State of Origin.
Yeah. Your favourite current day player?
Oh, look, for me, I had to, it would be a photo finish, Petrarca or the Bont, and grand final day, it was just so good. So I'd probably go the Bont just over Petrarca. Just not much, though. Only because I've got a photo of him in my garage, which sounds wrong, but I do.
The nickname Stalker's coming back into play, I reckon.
Yeah, it is. Oh, don't ask how many I've got of Gary Ablett then.
Oh, jeez.
Junior, that is.
We'll keep that between ourselves. And the last question of the Pressure Cooker, and I think you might have already answered this one with the 3 clubs you obviously play for, but which team do you support now?
Yeah, no, go the Saints. I love the St Kilda Footy Club, and I'll be involved in there one day. I'll probably head back to Melbourne, and hopefully the young fella can go father son. So that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're hoping for, and hopefully be part of the footy club once again soon.
Love it. Well, that's pretty much it, Spider. We absolutely love that. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. And we wish you all the best going forward, and with your travel show as well. We'll make sure we tune into it and we visit all the recommendations you've put forward. So appreciate it again, mate. And thanks for coming on.
No worries at all. Anytime. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.